right, good morning. It's now 9:05, and I'll call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda, first I would like to pass along Secretary Slater's regrets he couldn't be here today, but he does intend to join us on the November meeting. Okay, so call the meeting to order at 9:05. The first item on the agenda is approval of the open session minutes of September 24th and the open and closed session meeting minutes of October the 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can you let us know who motioned in second?
Yes, Member Cox did the motion, correct? And
Thank you.
you're welcome. Yeah, now we have to get used to getting back in person here. Thank you. Okay, the next, we have three items for approval on item number 2. Three different contracts, FT 3010 to repair the concrete wall and replacement of 15 kV cable and conduit. And I believe Donna DeSerbo.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Donna DeSerbo, thank you. Good to see everyone in person. Behind the mask, everyone in person. This is for, to seek contingent approval for FT 3010, as discussed. This was advertised on March 2nd. We received 5 bids. There was an 18% MBE goal with 7% African American, 4% Asian sub-goals, and a 1% VSBE. Fresnay is recommended for award for $29,292,760. Their estimate was 18% below the engineer's estimate. A bid justification was conducted and determined to be fair and reasonable. There was a protest on this. It was denied, and the appeal period has passed. So we're recommending award to Fresnay in the amount of $29,292,760.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Serbo?
I move that we approve this contract.
Member
Second.
Rosen with a motion, and
Second.
we have a second. Member Gaines. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous, Madam Secretary. The second contract is HT 3007, BHT bridge deck overlay and miscellaneous repairs.
Yes, this work includes the removal of the existing deck joint assemblies, including portions of the concrete deck and concrete parapets, placing new concrete in removal areas, furnishing and installation of the deck joint assemblies, milling deck surface, placing latex modified concrete and other deck repairs. It was advertised on September 18th of 2019. There was a 19% MBE goal with sub-goals of 7% for African American and 4% for Asian, and a 2% VSBE goal. Those goals have been met by the contractor MD Miller and Company, or the Marksman Company. The engineer's estimate was $6,202,861.40. The bid came in at $6,956,907.79. It was 12% over the engineer's estimate and determined to be fair and reasonable. There was a protest, and again, this was denied, and the appeal period has passed.
Thank you, ma'am. And any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Member Carroll to approve.
Second.
Second by Member Gaines. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the third contract approval award is for MT 3135, Security Systems Maintenance and Service.
Yes, sir. This contract provides for security system maintenance and service for all of our MDTA locations. This was advertised on June 24th of 2020, and it is a calendar duration of 1825 days. There was an 8% MBE goal with no sub-goals and a 1% VSBE. We received 2 bids, and ARC Systems is being recommended for award for $934,369. And ARC did meet both the MBE and VSBE participation goals. S3 Integration did protest the award, and it was denied, and the appeal period has also passed.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, why such a disparaging difference between the two?
We asked ourselves that, and we honestly have no idea. Sometimes a bidder will want to bid, but they can't really perform, or they're committed, overcommitted, but they want to show interest, and they'll just put in a high amount, but we have no confirmation of that.
But they protested it.
Yes, they protested that ARC Systems staff did not have the licenses that were required for the contract, but we did verify that they did, and the protest was denied, and they did not appeal.
Is this consistent with our current contract?
Meaning,
The current contract amount?
yes, yes, the price was determined to be fair and reasonable.
We didn't have an engineer's estimate, but we had a budget, I guess, or what?
Yes, we had a budget, a fund certification, sorry.
Okay.
We did. They did, the engineers did look at the line item pricing and determined that it was in accordance with their estimates.
Great. Sir?
I have one question. As far as the evaluation, I know we do a thorough evaluation of their capabilities and references and so forth, with that difference in pricing.
I'm sorry, say that, I didn't hear you.
A detailed evaluation has been done, I guess, of their capabilities with that jump.
Yes, they can
And-
perform the work, yes. They've
Okay.
performed work for us before,
Thank you.
yes.
Great. Any further questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So
Member Cox? Is there a second? Second from Member Rosen? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Next up, Donna's still at the table. It's a contract award update for the interactive voice recognition system upgrade at the Bay Bridge.
Yes, this is not an approval item, this is an informational item, as
Right.
you stated. We do bring our works over $500,000 to the board for their information. This contractor is going to provide the interactive voice recognition IVR system upgrade at the Bay Bridge. We conducted a purchase order RFP off the Department of Information Technology master contract. There are only 2 master contractors, so we received a single bid for this. This contract did receive approval of the Department of Information Technology, which is a requirement before we can award. So we're recommending award to NEC Corporations of America for $1,029,469.10. We did have a 35% MBE goal overall, and they did meet that goal. There were no protests, and we are recommending award.
Great. Any questions? Was this, I do have one, was this bidder, were they part of the master contract list
Yes.
that they would have? Okay.
Yes,
I assume they were, yeah. Okay, thank you.
welcome.
All right,
Any other questions?
all right. Next up will be, thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Next up will be Kim Melander. This is an approval item, amendment to the board operating policy, clarifying the major projects report and deleting MDTA initiatives, projects, and goals. So I think Kim is up next. Ooh.
I definitely want it right.
Good morning, members. So
Good
this
morning.
morning, I have for you is two proposed amendments to your existing board operating policy. As you know, your operating policy is the document that you have in place that sort of provides direction and delegations to staff. And it includes certain required reports that need to be presented to the board on various bases. Based on your conversations we had at last month's board meeting in September, particularly related to the monthly major projects meeting, we discussed changing the dollar threshold for the reporting requirements. So the first draft amendment is to go from a $10 million threshold to a $40 million threshold. And you'll see that. I've attached a draft and track changes that highlights that change. While we were also reviewing the reporting requirements, we noticed that there was a requirement for a report on initiatives, projects, and goals. And when we examined that more closely, we realized that several of the other reports already sort of covered those topics. And so we were just recommending deleting that since we believe that's already duplicative and covered in other reports. So those are the 2 amendments as proposed before the board for consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for Kim?
Yes, I have a question. Change from the 10 million to 40 million, do we have any idea percentage-wise how that works out to the projects? Like how many fall within the 10 million versus the 40 million?
So if you recall at last month's board meeting, we reported on, I think it was 40-plus projects at the $10 million threshold. To drop it down to, or to drop it up to 40, so to speak, to go to 40, I think is going to take you closer to about 10 to 15. And that'll vary, obviously depending on the number of projects we have, but I think it'll get you closer to the sort of the highs of the highs, probably in the 10 to 15 range in any given month.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
I did have just a request, but as to the policy, but not in regards to these particular issues. If you want to, I don't know if you want to have a vote on this, and then, or.
In the policy, you have a request for not this particular policy, but.
Well, a change or a possible look at a change in the policy. I can go ahead and discuss that now, or do you want me to?
Sure. Would you like to entertain that now, Kim?
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay,
we
sure.
can address that.
Okay, so one of the things is that with the, making some of the financial decisions that have been put before us, sometimes it's a lot of information. And so I was wondering if there's any way that we could have possibly scheduled work sessions in which the information is presented to us initially, then we have a work session in which we can kind of flesh out some of the questions that we may have. And then a final meeting where there's a vote as to what's been presented to us after we've had this opportunity to ask the questions. Is that a change that could be made?
Yes, so I don't know if you want to address that directly in the board operating policy itself. We can add that into sort of the scheduling for how meetings are scheduled. We could add something in that section. Just to clarify, I think you're looking for like a discussion work session prior
Yes.
to an approval item?
Exactly.
Okay. And is that defined to finance items, budget items?
Well, definitely finance.
Okay.
I think maybe kind of give some thought to whether the other areas would need that, but I definitely think finance would be an area that would benefit from work sessions.
Okay.
So Kim, if I might, I just want to try and be clear on this. So obviously, we work through the Finance Committee. That's one route. One of the suggestions that I had made recently was that, in past history, the board didn't have a lot of problems because we never really faced something like COVID, for example, where our payments and everything else went down, our financial system, where we had to make such large adjustments. The current process that we have in place worked very well for many, many years, except for a period like this. And so we're more than happy to, we have to present the budget to you twice a year, and we're more than happy to have that work session. I just want to understand if it's related to the 2 reporting sessions or all the time. That's what I'm trying to get clarity on. I think all the time we're looking, we go through the Finance Committee. That's what the Finance Subcommittee's for. And then if there's any questions from the Finance Committee members, then we would have a presentation to the rest of the board. But I do agree that during these 2 reporting periods for the budget, it makes a lot of sense to have, let's call it a pre-meeting, if you will, a pre-meeting or a working group before we report on those 2 times. If that's what you're asking, obviously we're in support of that.
Right.
I certainly am.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. I think, we don't want to, I'm not looking for overkill here,
No.
but I do agree that during those two time periods, we do need maybe
Okay.
some additional meetings.
That gives us a little bit more to go by,
Yeah.
Kim, I think,
Okay.
Would you be okay with them going flushing that out and coming back with some
Absolutely,
thoughts? Would that be
absolutely.
helpful to you?
Well, we'd
Council?
have to bring that back anyway, Sean.
Yeah,
So-
sure,
So the
sure.
amendments today that they can vote on.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
these new amendments or new requests, I guess I would say, we would have to write up, Kim would have to write up the legal information and then bring it back to the board for a final vote.
Yeah,
and-
understood. I
and
guess what
discussion.
my point was
Okay.
to her flesh it out would be whether it was need for a policy or it was an actual adjustment to the policy or not. So that'll give you a little bit of time before the next meeting to determine
We'll
that.
prepare something for next
Cool.
meeting on that
Thank
one.
you.
Okay, thank you.
I do agree with Member Ardinger on her comments, with her comments there. I think there is some room to, I felt like we've done a workshop before on the finance side, very helpful, especially for new members, but also I think it's something we should strongly consider. Sometimes I think, just my personal view is that we're caught into the timeline. Sometimes it moves a little bit too rapidly for us. I don't know how other members feel, but I just, it's a lot of information. It's a major decisions, as we all know. And I just feel that we might need a little bit more focus on discussion, where we're not, it's like there's a vote pending, boom.
Yeah.
And just a little bit more time. I think we should consider it.
Yeah. Oh, we are. And let me just clarify too, because after I made that comment previously about trying to change this policy, you're also on the agenda today. You're going to get a verbal on what we anticipate to give you in November. That's never happened before, okay? But we believe we need to be fully transparent, and we understand the fiduciary duties of the board. I certainly do. And so I support any effort to make sure you get the information you need. So you will get a verbal today. It's a verbal because everything's not totally completed yet, right? And so, but it's very close. I don't see very many changes at this point from what you're going to hear today till November, but we just want to give you the opportunity to hear it, see it, and ask questions about it so that you can have more input on it.
Yep.
So that's what you're going to see later in the agenda.
I think that's helpful. Member Carroll, it seemed like you had a comment.
I was just going to say, I think what COVID has highlighted certainly is an opportunity for us to take a look at policy and procedure in such a way that we can tighten it up moving forward. Where I get concerned is when we start making policy changes that are reactive and not responsive. I think to Jim's point, in my time on the board, we've done a fairly consistent job of briefing the board, and then when having to go into depth into issues, we've done so. I think we can get more consistent about it, and I think there are certain times of the year where that should happen. Yet, I'm not necessarily convinced that you go and change board policy, because that seems to be an overreaction to an extreme set of circumstances that nobody in this room or in this state, this country by extension, could have predicted or accounted for. So while I like the opportunity for us to revisit areas where we can tighten up our policy, or we could tighten up procedure, I'm not necessarily convinced that you go and change the law, if you will, simply because of an anomalytic situation.
Any other comments on Member Ardinger's request? Great, and certainly the chairman's office would be happy to participate in any of those workshops so we can keep him up to speed as well, so to the extent possible. That said, we are back to the approval item for the amendment to the board operating policy on the major projects.
I'll
So
move we approve the amendment to the operating policy.
we have a motion from Member Gangemi. Do we have a second?
Second.
I saw you heading to that. Member Ardinger's a
I'll
second.
second.
She's a little fast. Okay, any further discussion? Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Madam Secretary, the motion is unanimous.
Thank you.
I'll allow for the switch out here. The next item up for approval is the collective bargaining agreement amendment with Fraternal Order of Police Lodge number 34. Sorry, fogging up. This is to clarify and rescind a portion of the amendment to the memorandum of understanding reached with the FOP Lodge number 34. And we have Percy Dangerfield, Tanya Davis, and Christina Thompson. I'm sorry, Tanya Dorsey. Christina
Morning,
Thompson.
Chair,
And
members
good
of
morning.
the board.
Morning.
I'm here today to seek the board's approval for an amendment to the existing collective bargaining agreement negotiated between the Department of Budget and Management on behalf of the MDTA and the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 34. The state and the FOP reached an agreement to reinstate the 5% cost of living adjustment in fiscal year 2021. The COLA will be effective as of July 1st, 2020, resulting in bargaining unit members receiving retroactive payments. The state and the FOP further reached an agreement to reinstate the $1,500 uniform allowance for collective bargaining unit members for fiscal year 2021. If fully implemented, the agreement results in a cost of $2.7 million, including benefits for the COLA, and a cost of $0.7 million for the uniform allowance. We're seeking your approval to grant the 5% COLA and the $1,500 uniform allowance in fiscal year 2021.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. We rescinded the cost of living adjustment in the spring, I guess, was it?
Yes,
When the virus hit because of budget concerns of the state.
correct.
And I guess the uniform allowance that was in the original contract and taken out temporarily.
That was originally bargained for, and we rescinded that as well.
So has our budget situation gotten a lot better since then? I'm missing that.
As a part of the collective bargaining agreement, there is an opportunity for a reopener, a fiscal and a financial reopener. The Department of Budget and Management bargained this on behalf of the MDTA, so this is where we are. It was determined that, I guess, fiscal constraints were such that we could offer the 5% COLA and the $1,500 uniform allowance.
Just seems like we're looking at places to cut in the budget and to be adding to it. I don't know if it's wise. Not many people were getting cost of living increases around the state, I don't think. But
Tanya, if I might, the other factor here is that, we have several police forces throughout the state.
Right.
Especially with the state police and then, of course, our MDTA police. And so the reason that DBM bargains on our behalf to begin with is because they're trying to keep the police forces pretty much equitable across the state. So there's not conflict and you don't get this jumping back and forth. So that's why it occurred. And you're right, the state budget it looks a little better than what they first anticipated. And so DBM decided that they were going to give the state police back theirs, and they also, since they bargained on our behalf, they asked us to also do the same thing. You might recall that was a very difficult vote for the board in the first place, so it's kind of putting us back to where we were prior to COVID, and that's kind of the reason for it.
Any more questions on that one?
No,
You
sir.
okay with? Okay. Any further questions for Ms. Dorsey? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Member Von Paris, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Member Gangemi. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Member Carroll was opposed. The rest were aye, so the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dorsey. Okay. Next up will be an update. Fiscal year 2020 Independent Auditor Service Organizational Control Report. And it appears that Ms. Sharpless is at the table. And Mr. Seymour.
Good morning, members.
Good morning.
For the record, I'm Deb Sharpless, Chief Financial Officer. The MDTA has contracted with a third-party conduit to provide tolling services. A statement on standards for attestation engagements in SSAE 18 is an attestation engagement that provides the MDTA and its financial statement auditors with an opinion regarding the reliability of toll transactions processed by conduit. An unqualified opinion means the transactions and associated revenue are free from material misstatement. The engagement that in a minute will be presented to you was a SOC 1 Type 2 audit. Per the AICPA, this engagement reports on the fairness and presentation of management's description of service organization system and stability of the design and operating effectiveness of the controls to achieve the related control objectives throughout the reporting period. So this means that the controls were tested as opposed to just cited. The engagement was conducted by SB and Company, and here today is Bill Seymour, founding partner, to present this engagement results to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Bill Seymour. I'm the engagement partner with SB and Company. We had previously presented the results of the work that we performed to the Finance Committee back in early October. I will summarize those results for the board. As Ms. Sharpless had mentioned, our audit period was from July 1st of 2019 through June 30th of 2020. We reviewed 13 individual control objectives that were described and asserted by Conduit in the operations of the EasyPass system. We noted no qualifications within the report, so we've issued an unmodified, or if you will, clean opinion. However, we did identify certain areas where the design or the operating effectiveness of those control activities could be enhanced. It's somewhat of a unique time given the change in the contract that is in process, and so a lot of the areas that we found as exceptions dealt with primarily documentation, or if you will, lack thereof, documentation of certain processes for that. But we did not find anything that would rise to the level that we would have to modify the opinion. We performed certain procedures related to certain complementary user controls, that is, controls that are in place at the authority, as well as looking at the proper disclosures for any subservice organizations that were used and the potential impact within the process of there. We had no issues from that process. We conducted this work kind of during the midst of the pandemic, so there were certain challenges and logistics and making sure that everybody remained safe, as well as some challenges with Conduit changes of personnel as a result of the change in contract, which delayed us from issuing this prior to September 30th. We issued it pretty much immediately after the Finance Committee earlier this month. There were a couple of additions for disclosure that were made, but there were no substantive changes to the results that occurred. And I'll stop there and see if there's any questions that I can address from the members.
Any questions? Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Sharpless is back at the table, and it's the financial plan. Want an update on the financial plan?
So the purpose of this item is to provide an update regarding MDTA's financial plan that ensures continued compliance with its financial standards. All of the elements of the financial plan, as we talked about a few minutes ago, will be presented for your approval in November, consistent with prior year actions when the operating budget, capital budget, and financial forecast are approved. COVID-19 has created new financial challenges for us. Although uncertainty remains with the full impact of COVID, this isn't the first time we face the uncertainties amidst two mega projects. When it comes to our financial stability, COVID and customer-focused decisions are the current challenge. We are prepared to overcome these challenges because of our financial strength and the flexibility embedded in our foundation. In November, we'll present to you a plan that begins with our updated traffic and revenue forecast. The forecast will show we're dealing with a short-term revenue decrease, and the financial plan aligns short-term strategies to address short-term revenue decreases. None of the actions that will be proposed in this plan for your approval will have a negative long-term impact on the MDTA. The plan is multifaceted. The plan addresses revenue generation through actions such as resuming mailing NO2Ds, which would begin on October 15th. It also includes amending the 21 operating budget to include reductions. The police item that we just discussed is part of the 21 budget. And so when we've, going through our financial standards, we have accounted for that cost. These reductions are largely one-time reductions that need to be sustained until June 30th, 7 months from now. Many of these reductions will not impact our operations. Those that have the potential to have an impact will be noted. The plan includes the approval of the FY22 operating budget, which is flat when compared to the 21 original budget before we started making COVID adjustments. The plan includes the final capital budget that nearly mirrors the draft budget that you approved previously in June. The plan also includes targeted debt service cash refunding for the 2012, 17, and 19 series bonds, specifically the FY21 and 22 maturities. Combined, this is $47 million. The cash refunding uses a piece of our reserves above our $350 million to pay off these specific maturities. This strategy has no impact on future debt service, as it is not what many government entities are doing today that's been coined the term scoop and toss, in which current debt is restructured to be paid in future debt. This is not that strategy. This is taking our cash reserves above our $350 million and paying off selected maturities, an example of the flexibility that we have. The rating agencies have expressed no concern with the scoop and toss method, which again, this is a much more conservative approach, and they viewed it as a prudent, low-risk response by management to partially mitigate the near-term financial impacts of COVID. And then we'll conclude the financial plan with our financial forecast. The forecast will show debt service coverage above our 2x requirement. Throughout the 6-year reporting period, our coverage ranges from 2.4 to 3.5. In fiscal year 21, we anticipate 2.5 times coverage, and in fiscal year 22, 3.5 times coverage. In our plan, we will recommend that we target and take out, roughly $23 million of the FY22 maturities, recognizing that there is still a lot of uncertainty with COVID. And we have the reserves, we're healthy above our $350 million level in order to address both fiscal years now. On a net basis, it impacts our unencumbered cash balance by the $23 million because the 21 maturities, we would have paid debt service come this July anyway. So these are unusual times, and therefore we felt it beneficial to share the highlights of this plan prior to waiting until November when the plan is officially presented to you, starting with the Finance Committee and then proceeding to the full board. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions that I can at this time about the plan. As Jim indicated, it is extremely close to being completed. We are moving, $1 million here and $1 million there. It is very, very small tweaks at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. And any questions for Ms. Sharpless? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm on the end.
Yeah, good to see you.
Can you, prior to the next, or actually sooner than later, can you share these bullet points you just hit us with? I mean, I wrote a bunch of notes, but
Yes.
I'd kind of like to digest that a little bit.
Yes.
before our next meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to understand what's it called, the scoop and what?
The scoop and toss.
Scoop and tossing, that method versus what we're doing, just
Right.
Yeah.
so we can understand it a little bit better.
Scoop and toss, like, we were talking about our mortgages, our home mortgages. Imagine you refinancing your home, and you're not paying any mortgage payments right now in the near term, and you're refinancing it and putting those payments out into the future.
Oh, so you just have interest accruing more.
Right,
interest
right, so you're
accruing.
increasing your payments in the future.
Right, that's scoop and toss.
That's what scooping, because you're scooping up today and you're tossing it into the future. That is not our strategy.
Right.
We will take a piece of our reserves that we have, part of why they exist, and target these specific maturities. Now, part of our normal due diligence that we always do is to look at just regular refinancing opportunities.
Right.
They are very, very limited for us right now because we don't have bonds coming due within 90 days, and tax laws had changed about that. But that is still something we continue to monitor. And we are also working with the federal government on our TIFIA loan for the Nice Bridge, which will also include savings associated with the ICC, and we expect that as well. But the forecast that I will present to you next month does not include any assumed savings. It only includes actions that the board is actually approving and taking. So if those other opportunities come to fruition, which is certainly the TIFIA loan, we absolutely anticipate that loan being finalized. Those savings will be reflected at that time. So we're not speculating in the forecast, nor have we in the past.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So my understanding is we're looking at utilizing part of our cash reserve, but we would still meet all the requirements with our cash reserve. Will you be also providing to us what the cushion will be, where we are percentage-wise in regards to?
Yes, as part of the financial forecast that we put in your materials, you will see the debt service coverage, the rate covenant. You will see where we are with unencumbered cash balance. When we do this cash refunding, we will maintain above the 350. The refunding will not drop us below. We will stay above there. And then, I don't consider this part of our financial plan. It's reflected in the forecast. We will have a future bond sale that has been scheduled for our capital program. When we do that, we will reimburse ourselves any unencumbered cash that we're legally permitted to. And we've all heard the expression, cash is king. And we certainly are ensuring that we maintain these reserves, moving forward. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have a question, Deb. First, thanks for the report and the work that went behind it. I guess, like Member Gangemi said, I'm looking forward to getting more details, of course. Relating to the NOTDs, I guess in an effort to improve I just have more of a general, I wanted to comment on that, to eliminate any, and I guess in an effort to eliminate any confusion and to set expectations moving forward. I think that I think if there's ever any decision that may have a material impact to our budget or our financials, to send out, for example, bills to customers, or not to send out bills to customers, I think that must be approved in advance by the board, and any issues resulting from that immediately advised to the board. So that's just my comment. Again, I thank you for the effort that you and your team put on Jim, everyone here. have put forth in this.
I absolutely have to recognize the entire agency, because, and the finance staff here is wonderful. You have a lot of experience at this agency, which is part of what allows us to put through this plan. But at the end of the day, you also have a lot of divisions that are led by chiefs and directors. And so the operating budget cuts that we're making, and there are some impact for some of those, you know, and we have all said, we can get through this for 7 months. In 7 months, so it is absolutely a team effort, and it starts at the divisions. And this has been approached and looked at as an agency plan, and, you know, couldn't be done without everyone in the agency.
Any further questions?
Deb, just one comment related to when you present the budget and the update, are we also going to talk about cash flows as well?
Yes.
Typically, we don't talk a lot about that. It kind of takes care of itself, given the unique times.
Yes.
It'd be good to understand from a cash flow perspective, perhaps not on a monthly basis, but on a quarterly basis, so we can understand the impacts associated with NOTDs and the other, and more limited revenue from tolls.
Right. And that conversation, it'll occur both when we walk through the traffic and revenue forecast. We have our traffic and revenue forecast updated annually. It's a decision that's been made by the board and the agency. And so we have our updated traffic and revenue forecast. When we walk through that, and we'll look at the curves and what we're seeing, anticipate with revenue, and then you'll also have part of the conversation on the financial forecast side where we'll see cash flows there. And I can also talk about additional measures that we're taking to monitor even closer than normal. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Deb, thank you and your team. I know from firsthand experience, you guys are, the whole team is working around the clock and presenting information and constantly juggling. So I appreciate all, and I know we all appreciate all you're doing.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, so next item, actually Deb will be sticking around. We have 2 items. It's legislative reports submitted to the legislature. The first is the Bay Crossing Construction Local Aid, and then the I-495, I-270 Public-Private Partnership Maryland Transportation Authority bonds. We have Deb, and will Heather be joining you, or just be you?
So we're going to present.
Oh, she's in the back. Okay, I see her.
she's
Great.
here. But we're going to present 2 separate reports.
Okay.
So since I'm already sitting here, I'll go ahead and present the 495 I-270 report.
Perfect.
And then we'll do the switch, and she'll present the second report.
Thank you.
Okay. So earlier this month, MDOT, on behalf of the MDTA, submitted a joint chairman's report to the Senate Budget and Taxation and the House Appropriations Committee. The report content addressed the scope of the MDTA loans to this project, the use of these funds, MDTA's claim on toll revenue from the project, an explanation for the need for the second trust agreement, and how it will differ from the existing trust agreement. The submitted report is included in your board materials. Within the report, the MDTA explains the state is best suited to pay for certain project expenses in order to mitigate risk. As a partner in the P3 program, the MDTA is in the best position to issue bonds, not expected to exceed $100 million, through a private placement to pay for these costs. The bonds will have a senior lien on the toll revenue generated from the P3 facilities. After payment of applicable toll processing and back office costs are reimbursed to the MDTA. This is a no recourse to the MDTA or state financing. Since the bond debt service will be funded solely from the P3 program, the state continues to achieve its no net cost goal. The second trust agreement separates toll revenues and financing for the P3 facilities from that of MDTA's existing facilities. With that, I'm happy to address any questions.
Any questions for Deb? Great, thank you. I know we'll see you again a little later. Okay, Heather, welcome.
Good morning on this sunny day. Thanks for
Bring the
having
arc
me
in.
today.
Did you come in on the arc?
What's that?
Did you come in on the arc? It seems it's raining really hard out there.
Yes, yes, I did come in on the arc, that's right. Okay, thanks so much for having me. I'm here to present, give you a presentation on the report that we developed in response to Joint Commissioner's request to develop a report regarding the support that would be provided to local communities during and after the construction of a third Chesapeake Bay bridge span. The JCR requested that the report include the identified level of funding, the responsible state agency, the rubric that will be used to determine how funding would be split between the counties, and a timeline for providing the funding. If no state aid plans exist, the JCR requested an explanation for why this is the case and how counties are expected to fund the increased costs associated with the higher levels of traffic. You should have all received a copy of the report in your materials. So the report that we developed includes an overview of the purpose and status of the ongoing Chesapeake Bay Crossing Tier 1 NEPA study. NEPA stands for the National Environmental Policy Act, and we refer to the study as the Bay Crossing Study. The report also includes an overview of the process for a potential future Tier 2 NEPA study and a discussion of the consideration of traffic impacts to local roadway networks that would occur during this potential future Tier 2 NEPA study. So the purpose of the ongoing Bay Crossing study is to consider corridors for providing additional capacity and access across the Chesapeake Bay in order to improve mobility, travel reliability, and safety at the existing Bay Bridge. Congestion is at the core of the Bay Crossing study. It's the cornerstone. It's so a selected alternative approved by the Federal Highway Administration in the final environmental impact statement and record of decision would relieve congestion at the Bay Bridge. Therefore, completion of resulting Bay Crossing is not anticipated to exacerbate congestion problems along surrounding local roadways. The study is being conducted in 2 tiers, and we're currently in Tier 1 of the study. The end goal of Tier 1 is to identify a 2-mile wide corridor for a potential new crossing of the bay. This Tier 1 study is anticipated to be completed in 2021. We're currently preparing the draft environmental impact statement, which is anticipated to be available this fall for review, and we will have public hearings following the draft environmental impact statement this winter. Following the DEIS, we'll develop a final environmental impact statement and record of decision. The FEIS will update the findings of the DEIS as needed based on agency and public comments that we receive. The record of decision will finalize the selection of a corridor alternative and complete the Tier 1 NEPA process. So if the Tier 1 phase of the Bay Crossing study does result in that identification of a selected corridor alternative, a Tier 2 NEPA study could be initiated. Tier 2 would focus on evaluating potential alignments within the selected corridor from Tier 1, allowing for greater project detail during that study. It will include more detailed engineering of alternative roadway alignments and consideration of crossing types within that selected corridor. It will identify environmental impacts based on estimated footprint of proposed new infrastructure, include a financial plan for implementation and project delivery method, and include a robust program of public and agency involvement. During Tier 2, information regarding the location of potential traffic impacts would be used to develop those alternative engineering solutions. Potential effects of the traffic on neighboring communities from both the no-build and build alternatives would be assessed. Potential beneficial and adverse effects to local roadways resulting from the Tier 2 alternatives, whether by altered traffic flows or connectivity changes or physical impacts, would be considered in the study. During Tier 2, the MDTA would coordinate with local jurisdictions regarding potential impacts to the local roadways and mobility. Improvements such as intersection upgrades, repaving, access maintenance, or signage would be considered at that time. We would evaluate measures to minimize the impact of construction. So impacts to local transit, bicycle, or pedestrian networks would be evaluated. During Tier 2, that financial plan would be developed when alternative alignments are evaluated. So this is not pertinent to the current Tier 1 NEPA study because we're so early in planning. So the report emphasized that MDTA is committed to partnering with local jurisdictions potentially affected by proposed new infrastructure throughout a potential Tier 2 study to identify impacts and potential solutions. Tier 2 would conclude with a record of decision that would include documentation of commitments included with the proposed build alternative, including improvements to local roadway networks required as a direct result of the project. So that's a summary of the report. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions? Great.
I got a question, yeah. I mean, do you accept the premise that another bridge necessarily increases traffic significantly? It makes it move faster. I'll agree with that,
Exactly.
but is it more? I guess there's
Exactly. That's at the
an
heart
exact
of our,
science, huh? Yeah.
sorry, that's at the heart of our report, that the purpose of our study is to relieve that congestion.
Right.
So we don't anticipate the exacerbation and congestion as the request assumes. So, but during that study, we would work with the local governments, local jurisdictions on the alternatives we're investigating.
But I think the question I think you asked is, we get them across the bay fast, but then what happens on either side? Isn't that what you're asking? Because I actually find that hard to believe that we're not.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's not really my question, because I think you always have to say, what would you do if you didn't add another Bay Bridge? Because you'd have the same problem.
Right.
More, the backup would be over on 50 instead of on the other side. But it's the same number, perhaps the same number of cars. So, I mean, you have to have general road improvements every decade,
Absolutely.
everywhere, just because the
Absolutely.
population increases. So
Right.
I'm
And
not
if-
sure this changes the dynamic too much, but.
Right, and by improving the congestion at the Bay Bridge, it will improve the local roadways
Right.
as well if they're feeling congestion that's related to the Bay Bridge.
Any other questions from the members or comments?
Just to be clear, I think where some of the report request is coming from related to the concerns of the counties. So I understand that some of the various points of the process, how that comes in, but can you just talk a little more about the coordination with the counties related to funding, where roads go, how the costs are split and so forth?
Sure, well, during Tier 2 is when we would really delve into that, because we're so early in the process. But during the NEPA study, we would be coordinating with the counties and meeting with them, talking about the potential alternatives and what they assess as potential impacts, so that we can refine those alternatives in a beneficial way. Does that answer your question? So if new signage is needed, or traffic lights, or something along those lines, we would incorporate that into our project.
Any other questions from the board? I think I would like to see if Executive Director Ports has any comments on any of the legislative reports.
Not on this one. I have
Okay.
a clarification on another item that's already been presented.
On
Another item that's been presented, HT 3007.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
Any other? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, while we switch out, Jim, you have a
Yep.
clarification.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Donna DeSerbo, who presented HT 3007, found, I guess, a slight error in the report. and she would like to make you all aware of that so that we're, you know, up to speed on this thing.
Great, thank you.
Good morning again. I apologize, but there's an error in your package on your summary sheet. It says
Okay.
that we're recommending to MD Miller. MD Miller was rejected. We are recommending award to Concrete General for $976,277.37. Again, MD Miller should not have appeared in your packet because they were rejected.
Okay. And just to be clear, that was item 30, contract 3.
HT 3007-0000, the bridge deck overlay and miscellaneous repairs.
Okay. With that, Kim, do we need to, that's what I thought, yeah, okay. Do we have any questions back? It's back, it's item, I'm sorry, contract HT.
Why were they thrown out? Why was it?
They were rejected because they proposed meeting the MBE goal with a third-tier subcontractor,
Oh, right.
which is prohibited.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, with that clarification, I will entertain a motion to accept the
So
amended.
moved.
Member Gangemi?
Second.
Seconded by Member Von Paris. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, my apologies.
Okay, next up will be Jeannie Marriott. Update on the Consolidated Transportation Program, process and additions. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here today to update the board on the CTP process and additions to the capital program. And this information was presented to the capital committee on October 1st. The Consolidated Transportation Program is MDTA's 6-year plan for the capital program. It is updated twice a year and brought to the board members for approval in June as a draft CTP and in November as the final CTP. And the CTP includes funding for ongoing projects and new capital projects. The new capital projects originate from 5 sources: long-range capital needs, inspection findings, regulatory compliance, increased capacity needs, and local priority letters and legislative requests. Funding availability is based on the MDTA's 6-year financial forecast, which considers estimates of traffic and revenue, the operating budget and capital budget, debt service payments, potential need for future bond sales and toll increases, and compliance with financial standards. In the fiscal year 21-26 final CTP that I'll be presenting to you for approval in November includes 7 new projects. And if you look at the attachment, I'll just give you a quick overview of those. The first new project, excuse me, is the emergency procurement for partial superstructure replacement of the Moravia Road ramp to southbound I-95. And I think you're all familiar with this because that's the fire damage project. Secondly, it's southbound I-95 part-time shoulder usage from the Maryland House to Maryland 24. This includes restriping and repaving, and also installing ITS devices so that we can dynamically open and close the left shoulder lane based on traffic conditions. Tidings Bridge interim high-speed AET conversion. This project will remove 3 toll booths in the middle of the toll plaza, and new gantry will be installed. And this will remain in effect until the permanent AET conversion is designed and constructed. Maryland 24 northbound auxiliary lane from Maryland 924 through Singer Road intersection. Traffic models indicated that shortly after completion of the Maryland 24 interchange improvements, which are part of the I-95 ETL northbound extension project, Maryland 24 northbound will remain congested, and the traffic backup will extend back onto I-95 in the PM peak period. And by extending the auxiliary lane, we hope to prevent the backup onto I-95. I'm sorry, it will prevent the backup onto I-95. Holding tank replacement at the South FMT building. This includes replacing a deteriorated holding tank and installing an improved drainage system that will provide additional protection to prevent potential contamination from reaching the storm drain system and ultimately the Chesapeake Bay. Rehabilitate Fort McHenry Tunnel area-wide lighting. This includes replacing and upgrading lighting along the approach roads to the tunnel. And the FSK deck replacement. This is a full deck replacement and is necessary to restore the riding surface to an acceptable service condition. Do you have any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
On the Moravia Road, any chance of receiving compensation from any of the parties responsible for the fire?
I see
I
the
think that's,
esteemed
Yes.
yeah, that's a legal
counsel's
question.
gonna
Yes, ma'am. So we are evaluating whether or not we have a potential claim with the insurance carrier. That's under consideration right now.
Great. Any other questions? Great, thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is another update, 2019 updates from Structure Inspection Program. And forgive me if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Kesset Amari? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. Today,
Morning.
I'll present a very brief update on the 2020 inspection of MDTA facilities. Right. I'll start with some of the data and information we collected and provided to various entities. The major one is the annual bridge and tunnel inspection data that we submit to FHWA through MDTA, so we provided that for all of our bridges and tunnels. The other major one is the annual executive summary reports that we typically provide to the trustee. So we present 10 reports every year based on the inspection report, so we provided that. Besides that, I will not list everything here, but we provide different asset management and data requests from multiple divisions within MDTA, and we provided those reports as well. Moving on to the next slide, I will go over some of the main inspection types that we perform on our structures. Mainly, we call the detailed inspection hands-on inspection that's done at arm's length. We did that on our workhorse bridges. By workhorse, we mean bridges other than the signature bridges like the Bay Bridge, the Nice Bridge. So the workhorse bridges received those hands-on inspection. Additionally, we did a hands-on inspection on high-mast lighting structures, toll plazas, and scales. On the other hand, we did a risk-based interim inspection on the signature bridges and tunnels. That's done by looking at some of the previous findings and selecting some of the defects that we want to take a second look at. So we did that on a majority of the other structures. We also did underwater inspections on workhorse bridges and visual inspections on roadway and traffic safety feature. Our findings in terms of the condition of the bridge, our workhorse bridges are in overall satisfactory condition. I have listed a few of the major newly constructed bridges, like the Canton Viaduct, partially done, the northbound is done, and a few other bridges that are replaced as part of the ETL project. Our high mass light structures are in overall good condition, and the toll plazas and scales are in satisfactory condition. We did the hands-on inspections on the Signatures Bridge last year, so we did the risk-based inspection. So overall, except for the Nice Bridge, all of our signature bridges and tunnels are in satisfactory condition. Nice Bridge is in fair condition, but it's been replaced. So when we get the new one, we will be having a bridge in excellent condition. So I will end my update today with a few pie charts that show the different conditions in numbers. For our inspections, we typically use a 0 to 9 scale, with 0 being really bad and 9 being excellent. So we do this on the 3 major components of the bridge: the deck, the superstructure, and substructure. So we only have one bridge in poor condition for deck only, and that's the Canton Viaduct, which is being replaced. Besides that, we mostly have either good or satisfactory on the majority of the bridge. So the purple and the green, as you see in the pie charts, indicate most of our assets are really in satisfactory or good condition. With that, I will end my update, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions?
Which deck did you say was in poor condition?
What was that?
Which deck is in poor condition?
The IA-95 north of the tunnel, the Canton Viaduct,
Okay,
which is being
that's under construction, yeah.
replaced, yeah.
Good.
Gotcha. Member Cox, you have?
If a bridge, like the Hayden Bridge, has been in the last several years completely redone, and I see just like most other than the Nice Bridge have satisfactory, and you look on your chart, none of the bridges that you, or the main bridges, are in good.
In satisfactory
Poor,
condition.
fair, satisfactory, good, very good, and very, I mean, where do you come as far as inspections where they're better than satisfactory or less than fair? There's none better than satisfactory at this point?
There are some, like when we do the facilities, we're trying to look at 300 bridges, so we kind of average it out. But when we look at the signature bridges, this rating looks at, for example, for the Hayden Bridge, the entire stretch of the bridge. So some spans may be in good condition or very good condition. Some other spans may be, in fair condition. So we try to assess it in an overall, provide an overall assessment. So typically, a new bridge, for example, you may think it's excellent condition, but it doesn't take long before it becomes lower than that and just become a very good condition. Because, you have cracks on concrete, nothing wrong with that, but based on the criteria in our inspection condition evaluation that's provided to us by Federal Highway, when you see minor cracks, you just lower it down to very good. And in 5 years or so, it's not uncommon to see it being just good and not very good. So the fact that most of them are good is not really necessarily an indication that we don't have very good assets. It's just the criteria is a little bit stringent. But mostly, you wouldn't have safety concerns unless you are really in the pool or below that.
Did you have something over here, Jimmy? Okay.
I do have a question, just for clarification. The compliance issues that we have, compliance, for example, with, is it the regulatory piece of that, is that the Federal Highway? And we have to have standards with the Federal Highway comply with their requirements for some of these projects?
By law, there's a national we have to comply with the national NBIS, which is National Bridge Inspection Standards, and the NTIS, which is the National Tunnel Inspection Standards. So all states, all agencies need to comply with that. And there are requirements in the type of inspection that we do, how often we do each type of inspection. For example, the hands-on inspection needs to be done every 2 years, and the underwater every 5 years. So there are specific guidelines, and the State Highway Administration is the state engineer, which communicates with the federal highway to make sure that we as MDTA and even counties and others comply with these requirements. So there are specific, documents and rules that we need to follow.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, for any of the projects that are rated currently fair, are there plans in place to address them, and do any of those represent fairly concerning safety issues that then would have to be incorporated into the CTP?
The bridge which are in fair condition, as MDTA, our plan is to make sure that any of those fair, which are number 5, like the 5 fair, doesn't go into 4, which is poor. So we have 2 approaches. One approach is preservation. So we do repairs based on the findings of the inspections. We do some task orders or repairs to make sure that we keep up with the maintenance. That way we keep the bridge at a good state of good repair. Additionally, we identify bridges that we need to replace, because there's so much you can do by repairing bridges which are really old and which need repair. So we have an asset management program which identifies those needs, and then we initiate capital projects to replace those bridges. So overall, our intention is to maximize the number of bridges in very good condition or satisfactory condition, and reduce the ones which are just fair or below that.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's it. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next up will be a verbal update on the 3rd generation electronic collection system. It'll be, I have Deb Sharpless and Mr. Jim Forts.
So the purpose of this agenda item is to provide an update on the status of transitioning to MDTA's new 3rd generation electronic toll collection system, which we call 3G. This project has been years of work, and so when doing an update and trying to be mindful of time, we could talk about the project for hours. So trying to condense down the project, into 10, 15 minutes, but certainly available to dig into anything that you would like to. So before beginning, let me give you a little bit of background information. The MDTA Board and Board of Public Works approved 2 contracts to replace the current next generation system in January and February of 2018, respectively. The contracts are broken down into 7 phases: development, installation, acceptance, the base maintenance and operations period, 2 2-year options, and then closeout. The 3G ETC toll system and services contract, which was awarded to CAPS in the amount of $86.6 million, which includes 2 options. The development and installation phases total $32.3 million. To date, we paid CAPS $26.3 million, or 81% of the fixed price bid. The 3G ETC Customer Service Center contract was awarded to TransCore in the amount of $272.8 million, which also includes the option years. The development and installation phases total $17.9 million. To date, we've paid TransCore $8.3 million, or 46% of their fixed price bid. Our end goal continues to be to provide superior customer service by modernizing the toll system, to improve customer service through faster transaction processing times, improved performance, new communication channels such as a website, mobile app, ability to use the chat feature, payment methods and payment channels, and to provide increased accuracy of automated assigned vehicle toll classifications and rates through the application of profile-based technology and to facilitate communication and payment of tolls in the manner customers desire in today's technology-rich world. The path in reaching the end goal has faced several challenges. Much has been accomplished, however, there is still much more to do. Today, the larger challenges lie with the TransCore contract, which I'll address in a few minutes. A team of consultants, MDTA subject matter experts, steering committee members, 3G management, Jim and I have worked tirelessly to deliver this system while refusing to sacrifice quality and the positive customer experience we desire for our customers. MDTA and TransCore senior management, as well as MDTA and CAPTCHA senior management, have met throughout this contract, and for the last year, we've met weekly. The contracts included an aggressive 2-year development and installation period, which would have transitioned in February 2020. Most conversions take in excess of 2.5 years when converting from one vendor to the other, and upgrades from an existing vendor to an existing typically takes 2 years. MDTA adopted this aggressive schedule because schedule slippage consistently occurs with toll conversions across the industry. We subscribe to the philosophy of an aggressive schedule would reduce the overall slippage. A concurrent delay extension was executed as a result of the transition to AET at the Bay Bridge, as well as caption TransCores consistently showed completion beyond April. The transition date was moved to May 2020. Now, starting with the toll system and services contract, or the contract awarded to CAPTCH, the development and installation phases are close to completion and will be ready to enter the acceptance phase, known as Phase 3. Even though CAPTCH is ready, or near ready, I should say, to enter this phase, we will delay that until TransCore is ready in order for them to go through acceptance at the same time, as the systems must work together. CAPTCH's development and installation included 2 primary categories of work: the lane conversions and back office operations. The back office processing includes image review, trip construction, reports, a system called Remote Operations Maintenance System, also known as ROMS, cash operations, and customer service center testing. With the permanent conversion to AET, cash operations is no longer applicable, and the removal, without the removal, would have still been a significant effort. Lane conversions began in May 2019 and was completed in April 2020. As each lane converted, all transactions originated from CAPTCH. A black box, or a translator, has been used to transfer transactions from CAPTCH's system to Conduit. This process has been extremely challenging and has required substantial reprocessing, reconfigurations, and reconciliations. All ETC transactions have and continue to be transferred to Conduit. Initially, we stopped forwarding video image transactions to Conduit with the expectation they would be sent to the TransCore back office. We have since resumed forwarding video images transactions to Conduit. Currently, July transactions are being transferred to Conduit. As Conduit works down the backlog of video notices held due to COVID, the July transactions in subsequent months, if needed, will follow. The lane conversions duration was less than originally scheduled. However, they did start later than originally planned. This had no bearing on the go-live date. CAPTCH's back office processing and reports have lagged, and had the TransCore delays not occurred, would have impacted the go-live. Today, the back office processing and reports are very near completion. Image review, which entails a combination of optical character recognition engines as well as manual review to convert license plate characteristics into usable data was completed in August 2020. Since August, CAPS has been processing production data and steadily ramping up. Trip construction, which entails consolidating a vehicle's travel through multiple gantries into a single transaction, is 99% complete. There is one remaining comment to be resolved. Report development is 75% complete. The development of 40 out of 47 reports are complete. The final step with reports is the final review and approval by the subject matter experts and consultants. Weekly meetings with MDTA staff and consultants began October 6th to complete this final stage. Based on comments, there may be rework of the reports, and the percentage complete accounts for the possibility of reworking some of these reports. The ROM system is a system that supports auditing transactions, reporting anomalies and performance trends, and provides predictive maintenance capabilities. In July, CAPS recommended deploying a newer version of ROM's product instead of the system that it had proposed. MDTA's consultants and operations staff performed an analysis of the two systems, as well as compared it to the RFP requirements and agreed to transition to the newer system. Implementing the newer system added some time to the schedule as the initial system had been deployed. However, the additional functionality was deemed valuable to operations in the long term. ROMS is 90 to 95% complete. Today, the new ROMS is working as a primary system. I think it's also important to note with the ROMS that there was benefits for CAPS as well with going to the newer version of ROMS, because integrators strive to support a common system instead of having multiple versions. So by transitioning to the new system, both parties benefited. Customer Service Center testing entails the transfer and reconciliations of transactions to TransCore's back office. With the delays with TransCore's contract, it has caused this item to be behind. CSC testing is at 60% complete. By far, the largest contributor to CAPS's back office delays has been resources, just a general shortage. This is not unique to CAPS. You'll hear the same message with TransCore. Resources are pulled from job to job. The black box and the go-live delays have amplified the impact of constrained resources. So now moving on to the Customer Service Center services or TransCore contract, which has been the main driver for the delay in the go-live date. In theory, integrators such as TransCore strive to have a core baseline system that is customized for the unique aspects of each agency. Envision a trunk of a tree as a baseline, and I like to think of the branches as the uniqueness for each agency. The reality is the system may start from a core or a baseline system operated by another agency, but the required customizations, as well as the integrator's desire to continually modernize their system, results in substantial customization. Many of our business rules are unique to Maryland and require substantial custom code. Video tolling is a prime example, such as our notices and citation process, as well as the customer's ability to contest tolls and civil penalties in district court. These facts are not intended to be an excuse, as they were known when the contract was awarded, and yet since May, we have missed planned transitions in July, August, September, and November. From MDTA's perspective, key factors that have contributed to the ever-changing transition date include deficient software development, failed testing, poor documentation, and overall resource and quality issues, which all leads to poor management and oversight. Now, focusing solely on software development and testing. Software development has been a struggle throughout the project. The initial software development was late, resulting in factory acceptance testing known as FAT, starting 6 months late. As software development progressed and it was apparent many key development items would not be ready for a comprehensive FAT, MDTA and TransCore agreed FAT could be conducted using a two-phased approach, FAT 1 and FAT 2, which later became numerous phases. System testing has been far more challenging and lasted far longer than anticipated. FAT commenced in July 2019, and the other phases did not conclude until July of 20. At that point, TransCore began its internal testing, which was to occur on migrated data. They reported 18 failed scenarios, and the MDTA approved FAT regression testing of the full system, which began on August 10th and was stopped on August 23rd after MDTA and TransCore declared testing a failure. MDTA consultants continued to test with TransCore in order to identify all issues. For perspective, the testing is broken down into 16 volumes and includes roughly 1,200 scripts. Each script tests a number of functions, and therefore there's not a one-to-one ratio between a script and a function. For example, opening an Easy Pass account would be on a script, but there's many functions within that action. At this point, all testing is being performed on migrated data. Upon completing the testing where TransCore and MDTA's consultants continued, even after the formal testing was stopped, 252 failed functions were identified out of the 1,200 scripts. Initially, the response was to change test strategy and include more control and develop a new schedule. After continued poor progress, unrealistic schedules, and lack of management and oversight, the TransCore program director was replaced on October 2nd, and further resources added to the project. Additional 23 staff resources were moved to the Maryland project, primarily from the Ohio project, including 2 program managers, an assistant project manager, technical writers, interface testing support, and 15 software programmers. Today, we're cautiously seeing progress. Correcting the 252 functions has resulted in roughly 600 JIRA tickets spread over the 9 to 10 builds. MDTA consultants have confirmed 43% of these tickets have corrected the issue. And another 19% TransCore believes has resolved the issue. However, our consultants are in the process of verifying that. That was one of the actions that we had implemented, that everything that is done is subject to a second verification by the MDTA consultants. 13% relate to reports, and they are following a different verification process, which leaves a balance of 25% as being open. Even though we are seeing progress with the software development, the true test is where we start. The true test of where we stand will come when we review TransCore's internal testing scripts from Tier 1 testing. That's when these tickets have been addressed, the code is frozen, they go back and they test all 1,200 scripts again. When that is completed, the results will be reviewed by our consultants, and this review will be the entry to Tier 2 testing, which is then repeated for all 1,200 scripts and witnessed by MDTA's consultants, followed by Tier 3 formal testing, which is witnessed by MDTA's consultants as well as MDTA's subject matter experts. Progression to the next tier is contingent upon successful completion of the prior tier. The tiered approach results in traceability of all functionality and provides the control and auditability that TransCore has not been able to demonstrate. In addition to the tiered testing, performance testing before FAT testing and disaster recovery testing will occur. Extensive testing has occurred and will continue to occur. It's our sincere belief that excessive testing prior to deployment, demand for quality documentation and transition plans, and our consultants' attention to detail will result in fewer issues post-go-live. We've also seen an increase in required documentation submittals. The quality of the submittals and the need for resubmittals will be known once reviewed. Lastly, the call center has been constructed, outfitted. 129 of the planned 173 staff have been hired and trained. So months of work are still ahead of us, and of course, further updates can be provided on a regular basis.
Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions.
Sir.
Thank you, Deb, for the report. And if you can answer this, if you can't, then we'll stay away from it. But on the customer service side of things, if our revenue dips, do our customer service costs remain the same, or will they go down?
What you mean once we're awarded?
I mean, on where we're structured right now with the vendor.
So currently, the customer call center is being performed by Conduit. And I think John is here. I hate to call you. John is here, and I
guess I'm looking more at the future.
Okay. In the future, under the transport contract, their pay items are a combination. Some of them are variable in nature in the sense that as notices are mailed, as evidence packages for court are assembled, whereas other pay items are based on the number of Easy Pass accounts. So there's a combination.
Okay.
There's an extensive amount of KPIs in this contract.
That was my next question.
And there are both incentives and disincentives in the contract. And I think it's also important to note that once we go live, we will have a punch list, and we do have some deferred items. When we go live, TransCore and CAPS would go into the acceptance period. That's a 90-day time period. During that time, they're proving out their systems and they're proving their compliance with the KPIs, because the CAPS contract also has KPIs. After that 90 days, they have 90 days to resolve any outstanding issues.
So the KPIs that you have in place now, the vendors on the KPI too, you're in sync with that, or is it just on our side on KPI?
So the KPIs aren't in place yet because TransCore is not running the back office yet. So their KPIs will go into effect as soon as we leave the 90-day acceptance period.
Do you feel it would be any benefit for us to have our own KPIs to get this over the finish line, and to take a look at what kind of difficulties we might have or impact we could have if we didn't along the way, and we could get updated on that?
Sure. The contract, when it comes to delivery of the system, there are also liquidated damages that are in the contract there. And sorry, I was just trying to answer the question about KPIs, because the KPIs go into effect after acceptance. So when I was talking about the 7 phases, acceptance is 3, and then 4 is the maintenance and operations. That is when the KPIs become effective.
Okay.
With the incentives and disincentives, and that's true for both contracts.
Timeline with that, of course.
So
the other question is, at the time of planning at the time of starting the agreement, and again, if you can't answer that, that's fine. Did we anticipate having consultants involved in the analysis, or is that something that had to be added?
the consultants have always been part of the plan.
Okay.
Consultants were with us when they helped us put together the RFP, when they were part of the subject matter experts when we reviewed. However, we have used far more consultant resources than what we originally planned. So their amount of investment, the amount of time, and therefore the amount of money we spend on consultants is greater than what was originally anticipated. But they were always part of the equation, you know, along with the 3G team, the steering committee, the MDTA staff in operations and finance.
Okay, thank you.
It is taking a large group.
To that point, that was going to be my question, is due to the, aside from the timing issues that I know you're frustrated with, how much additional costs are we incurring due to the delays from either between both vendors as well as currently Conduit, who's now extended beyond their original period when they would have been relieved?
I would have to come back to you with that number.
Thank you.
Member Jimmy?
I've got a couple of questions. I'll start off with you talked about the aggressive schedule, and I appreciate that. The vendors knew that, though, right?
That's right.
And how do they respond to the fact that we had an aggressive schedule, they knew it, they bid on it, and they missed it badly?
They have, how did they respond? So let me focus on TransCore. I mean, at different points in time, there have been resources added, throughout. This is just the latest, biggest tranche of resources. They'll talk about diligently working, but the end result and certainly the testing, like the software development, and you go through the development, and then you go through their testing, and then you have one set of expectations, and then when you enter into the testing and the results aren't there, you're starting back over. And we had gone through that cycle a couple times this last time, and then not seeing progress was when changes were made at the local leadership level. But we have something called a steering committee, and it's senior management. It's senior management on TransCore side, it's senior management on our side, and that group has even expanded to include people beyond just senior management, where we come together weekly, and so everyone's seeing the schedule slip, and at the end of the day, it comes down to delivering, that you can have, and the schedules have been weak, they absolutely have been weak, and but at the end of the day, if you can't deliver, you could have the best of schedules, and you're still going to miss it.
So let me ask a further question. This piggybacks on Member Rosen's questions. I'm hearing, obviously, it was supposed to be February. We're now essentially November. And you said still months of work to go. So that kind of set me back a little bit. So we're probably going to be over a year late by the time we put this into place. We're using Conduit to help get us out of a jam.
That's right.
So we're paying them, we're paying CAPS, we're paying TransCore, and we're paying consultants. How do we get some of that money back? I mean, are these guys on the hook for any of that? I mean, the liquidated damages cover that?
It's something we have to look into further. Absolutely. So the Conduit expenses, when right now, we're paying them for the operations the same as we had a year ago. We have a contract with them. We need to do work with the contract. TransCore and CAPS, the installation and development was a fixed price for their installation. So, we have, now when CAPS is, they're ready, we're gonna have to start paying them for operations and maintenance. They're maintaining these lanes. And transactions that they end up processing will pay for them. we've tried to structure the contracts so we're not also paying conduit. So, for example, any of the lanes that CAPS has converted, we're only paying CAPS for those lanes. We're not paying conduit for those. And then, you're right, we'd have far more consultant costs than we anticipated.
Member Ogier?
First of all, Deb and Jim, thank you for all your hard work. I can imagine the frustration you must feel. Has this had a financial impact in regards to the collection of revenue? And if so, is it just a timing difference that we're looking at in regards to that collection?
From a revenue perspective, my view is that we made some customer-facing focused decisions. So they were COVID in nature. Now, the fact that we haven't transitioned makes those, and some of those decisions may very well have been different because we were expecting to transition far sooner than where we are. So by not transitioning, it's not the root cause, but it's a worsening factor, is how I would describe it.
And do you think that's a timing difference that we will be able to, at some point, recoup that revenue?
So with, so largely COVID, well, when we talk about the traffic and revenue forecast next month, we have, you'll see our revenue curve. It's a V. It's where we were, it V is down, it comes back, and then it continually inclines. So COVID, as well as AET and delayed in mailing NOTDs, you know, again, two very customer-focused decisions, that's part of the V. The V is COVID as well as these customer-focused decisions. It comes back, and that's what I mean by we are dealing with a short-term revenue cash flow, and we're therefore trying to align our strategies to deal with that short-term impact. You know, and you know, AET in general, you delay your collection of revenue, right? Instead of that customer paying that moment in time in the lane, and so any agency that transitions will face that the first time. It's almost like going to a different basis of accounting. When you make that shift, there's a short-term period of time you work out of.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
I would just have one kind of a comment, or, you know, this is a great deal of information. As you said, we could be here hours discussing it. How does the board get better briefed on this? And is there a methodology to get the, I think, more of a comprehensive briefing on this? Just suggesting.
Would monthly?
So this was our attempt to give you, I guess, a historical briefing of how this has occurred. And I just would say to Member Gangemi and his question about the software, and I think that, you know, it's funny because the private sector often criticizes the public sector as being bureaucratic and not getting things done. And yet, we depend on these private sector developers to get these jobs done the way they bid on them. And I think what Deb shared with you is that a lot of these companies, and we go through on the construction side sometimes too, one that Member Cox talks about is Alan Myers, for example. What they do is they bid all these contracts and they thin out their personnel, and then they don't have the resources to get the job done. And your job suffers. And it's happening not just to us, it's happening all across the country. It happened at various agencies in this state on previous projects you probably heard about in the paper. And it's very frustrating. I can tell you that back in May, I spoke directly with the CEO of TransCore and told him that I felt he had the wrong team here. And I guess to his credit, if you will, he was there to protect his employees. So we had a disagreement on how this was working. And I guess he was in denial a little bit, but he finally came to his senses, if you will, and pulled in a new team and a lot more resources. But as you heard Deb say, he took them from Ohio. And so I'm not sure how we fix that problem, because when we bid a job, we bid it with the expectation that we get the A team and it's going to be done in a timely fashion. But as Deb mentioned, we also recognize on software projects especially, because of the nuances of our system versus Massachusetts or Ohio versus North Carolina, they have to do some customization. So the term I use is you're building the airplane while you're flying, in a sense. And when you're doing that, you're developing, I guess, new software, new strategies on how to handle some of these problems, and then you get into this testing rotation. So we've been having weekly, and quite frankly more often than weekly, calls with the CEO and their new team and our consultants. And I can tell you that I explained to our consultants that it's gloves off. We're in a bare knuckle fight right now. And we need things to move forward. Deb mentioned that they kept giving us schedules. Now, every time they gave a schedule, I told Deb, and I don't believe it. And unfortunately, each time I was proven right. And I told them, we're not setting another deadline. I want to know from this new team a reasonable schedule. They threw us one out December 28th. I said, no way are they going to make that. And to do that, they wanted to knock back some of the testing. I said, unacceptable. Unacceptable. And there are a few things that other concessions, if you will, that they wanted us to make. We're not making concessions. We want the project to be done correctly. And so it's painful, quite frankly, to say to them, we're not going to accept a shortened schedule, because we want it to be shortened, right? That's our goal, is to shorten the schedule. But we're not going to accept a shortened schedule if it's not right. And, you know, I mean, I could share the email I sent to them, but you would see. But our consultants got the message. They're industry experts. They've been in this industry for a long time. They're evaluating TransCore each step of the way. And we also brought John into the mix, John O'Neill. He has an IT background as well as operations. And Deb on this project, but a lot of it is operational oriented, so we need to bring operations a little closer to it. We've done that, and we're bringing our whole management team on along with the consultants. And when we see something incorrect, we immediately tell them that we're not accepting it. And then they have to go back and reevaluate their position. And so far, each time, lately, they've agreed with us. And so we're in that process right now. We are holding their feet to the fire and documenting everything so that we can assess possible damages, quite frankly, if they don't get their act together. And then we have some other things we can do too, but yes, sir.
Jim, I appreciate what you're saying, and Deb, I appreciate your explanation of where things are. I have a couple of thoughts and subsequently a question as well. One, at the end of the day, the bottom line is the bottom line, and if you don't perform, whether it's public sector or private sector, there should be consequence to that lack of performance. So how do we ensure that there's a financial economic consequence for the B team showing up when we paid for the A team, right? And if that happens, obviously there needs to be a mechanism in place to control or somehow mitigate those damages. And then as we move forward on bigger contracts or contracts of this scale and scope, or projects of this scale and scope, how do we ensure proactively that we build into that process? That there's obviously, if you're bidding out a job as a contractor, there's the fudge factor that you build into it, right? But we, as the customer, ought to say that because of the nature of what we're asking you to do, if this isn't delivered, then the consequence for that delivery not happening should be this. Because I think you said at the beginning, if I heard you correctly, that they knew that there were some sort of nuances to this that would make it different than some things that they've done before. And as such, we should have the ability to come back and say, well, you knew that and you still didn't deliver, and I don't give a damn about all these reasons why you're giving me that didn't happen, but this is what should happen, and this is what has to happen as a result of that. How do we do that moving forward so that we can, like, it's great to have the conversation, it's great to get the new team in place, but at the end of the day, there's a financial cost along with the time, like the time push that creates, I think, an unacceptable dynamic with regard to a working relationship from my perspective.
I think that is something that we should come back to you on. I just am worried.
There's some things we're looking into that get into legal matters that we're not prepared to talk about now, and probably should be in a closed session.
Appreciate you both.
But we'll be happy to share them with you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, thank you, Deb. Next up will be the Executive Director's report from
Right.
Mr. Jim Forts.
Up again, huh? Okay. Well, it's been a very long and productive board meeting, so we'll keep this pretty short, but I do want to let everybody know that we had a very successful visit with Governor Hogan and Secretary/Chairman Slater the other day. They visited our 3-year, $189 million I-895 bridge project to see the project, and to thank our workers. And I can tell you, our team has done a fantastic job on this project. The project, which began in April of 2018, includes replacing, quite frankly, our only structurally deficient bridge. And it's 60 years old. And of course, we also were replacing the Hollowbird Avenue exit ramp, exit 10, north of the Harbor Tunnel, and rehabilitating the Harbor Tunnel and a lot of those tiles. I forget the number of tiles that we're replacing, but y'all know how difficult it is to do your bathroom when you're putting tiles on the wall. We're talking like over 6,000 tiles, and they each have to be replaced one by one by hand. And it's quite daunting. The project has employed 280 workers during COVID. And in addition to thanking the workers, the governor also announced that all 4 lanes of traffic on the new bridge will be open to traffic ahead of schedule by early 2021. And we may even be open even prior to that. We made some, what I would call, good decisions to move that project a little faster than anticipated. Some, I would say, maybe controversial decisions, but they worked out really well, you know, as our finance folks know, higher the risk, the better the reward, right? And so we've made some good decisions to move this ahead. Starting in November, two-way traffic will be switched on the I-95 from northbound bridge to the new southbound bridge, and the switch will allow crews to put finishing touches on the northbound span, and then we'll give all 4 lanes, the north and southbound spans, back to motorists early next year, and as I mentioned, possibly before. Remaining paving, shoulder work, and tunnel rehabilitation are on schedule to wrap up in mid-2021. That's that last top coat and some of the barriers for the switching that we're currently doing right now. So that obviously has to be done at a later point, and especially when we have milder weather. So we can tell you that everyone here at MDTA is grateful for the efforts and all the work of our frontline construction partners, as well as our MDTA inspectors and engineers. And I can tell you, we did a nice little touch. I had Governor Hogan sign a hard hat and gave it to the project engineer, Joe Jakowski, to be able to hang in their office as a memento of the governor visiting the project, because this is mega projects like this only come around once or twice in an entire career, and these guys have just done a fabulous job, and we're very excited about it. This week, I approved the 2021 calendar year holiday schedule for I-95 and express toll lanes, and for the benefit of the new members, as part of the MDTA board approved tolling plan for I-95 express toll lanes, the MDTA board established that the MDTA executive director would approve holiday schedule, which resets the toll schedule on certain holidays to a Saturday or Sunday toll based on traffic patterns for the holiday. And this approval occurs each year for the upcoming calendar years and shared with the MDTA board. It's not something we need to vote on. It's not that, quite frankly, controversial. For the ETLs, we modify the peak and off-peak rates in order to disincentivize traffic during high travel periods, such as Wednesday prior to the Thanksgiving and Friday after Thanksgiving, along with other historically traveled heavy travel days. There is a holiday schedule for the ICC, however, it requires no approvals as it follows a federal holiday schedule, and for the ICC, the holidays are all set to off-peak. Now, we have, if you will, unpaused or resumed the processing of and mailing of NOTDs and the notices of toll due. As the board is aware, back in March, we paused the processing and mailing of NOTDs in response to COVID-19. I want to update the board and let you know that starting last week, we resumed the mailing of NOTDs to customers who have been video tolling at the cash rate since March. As you've heard several times, there is a backlog that we have to address. We're in the final phases of putting into place the resources needed to increase our image review capabilities. As we get further into NOTD processing, I'll be back with an update for the board. I can assure you that our entire leadership team is involved in this effort for the NOTDs and image review process, and we expect that to be up and running very shortly. We should be doing training in the next couple of weeks, probably around by the middle of November, and then we should be up and running for the timing of when the NOTDs come in if a customer hasn't paid. So we're really moving that process along. It's quite frankly a mammoth of a job, and we're getting it done. We got a terrific team working on this. And as a reminder to the members, please note that November and December board meetings will be held 1 week ahead of the normal schedule. Obviously, that's due to the holidays in both November and December. So have a little bit shortened period between now and November. And with that, that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions, comments for Executive Director? Somebody has to have something to do. Okay. Before we go to the next agenda item, I do want to acknowledge the hard work of Natalie and the rest of the MDTA crew to get this meeting put together. We're all properly socially distanced here. Natalie, you kept the board members on track like you normally do, so thank you. And this is like our first official live streaming per the statute. And then I see that Ebony was switching the chairs in and out and doing a great job of disinfecting as we go. So it's a great team effort. We're all properly socially distant up here. So again, thanks to the entire team. We have the videographers back there and the sound folks and the entire team. So great work on that. With that, our next item will be to move into executive closed session, and I'll read the 4 items that we have, and bear with me because my glasses may fog up. First item is, it's Article 3-305B8 is the citation pending litigation. The reason for the closed session is to receive a status update on all litigation currently pending against the MDTA. Second item, citation is 3-305B10 and 12, related to MDTA police activities, and we'll be receiving a report on certain pending criminal investigations and an update on deployment of police staff and resources. Third topic, citation 3-305B1, personnel. We'll be discussing the performance of one or more specific employees and to discuss a specific personnel matter impacting specific employees. Fourth is citation 3-305B1, compensation and benefits. This will be to discuss compensation and benefits to be provided to specific individuals of the MDTA Police Command staff. With that, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved. So moved.
I have a motion from Member Gangemi. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And I'll do a quick roll call on this one. Member Gaines?
Yes.
Okay. Member Enzor? Member Cox? Yes. I see that we got a thumbs up from Member Enzor. Member Von Paris?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Carroll?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Gangemi?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Rosen?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Arger?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. With that, we will adjourn to closed session.
We're coming back.
Okay, I will, we're now going to reconvene the open session. I'll entertain a motion to reopen the
So moved.
motion by Member Cox, seconded by Member Gaines. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, we're now back in session. We have one action item. I'll entertain a motion to approve agenda item number 13 as discussed in closed session.
So moved.
We have a motion by Member Gangemi.
Second.
Second by Member Gaines. We'll do a roll call vote. Member Gangemi?
Yes.
Member Archer?
Yes.
Member Gaines?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Member Cox?
Yes.
Member Von Paris, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Member Rosen?
Yes.
Member Carroll? Yes. Yes, thank you. Okay, we're all approved. With that, now I'll entertain a motion to...
So moved. I move we adjourn.
Need a
Second.
second by Member Gaines. Any opposed? The motion is now adjourned. I mean, the meeting is now adjourned.